So Artie, it's so great to have you here. Thank you so much for spending the time
my
with
pleasure.
us. So we want to know what inspires your cooking style.
My biggest inspiration is the farmer's market and seeing everything that's in season, from fruit to vegetables, those sorts of things. I mean, they excite me. If I see something I've never seen before, I'm like, I have to take this home. The cool thing now is that it used to be that if you had a question about how to make something, you either had to know somebody or you had to have the cookbook. But now, because we have it on our phones, everything is available to you. I love it.
That's great. Well, what are your thoughts about food as medicine?
It's a big thing for me, and I think it's a big thing for Indians and South Asians. Our food is built on being medicine. And I sort of see it as like food is your first responder in terms of conditions or diseases or things that are not working correctly. And I think more and more we're learning here outside of sort of the Eastern world, we're learning that food can help so many of our troubles, and that so many of our sort of illnesses and conditions and immune system issues, all of that, we can start to support our bodies through what we eat.
But it sounds like the spices, Indian spices, really play a big part
I'm just starting
in that,
to scratch the surface on that. Like, Indian spices are huge. Indians eat about a teaspoon of turmeric a day. It's a lot, but the effect is that we have the lowest rates of cancer in the world. We have almost no sort of Alzheimer's. So these sorts of things, there's a connection between that. That's your maintainer, that's your healer, that's your feeder, So I think that maybe we need to make food more of our priority here and treat it as something sacred, a gift that is given to us to help us heal and lead healthy lives.
How do you adapt the cooking from American recipes that might have a little more fat or less spices?
I have a built-in recipe taster, which would be my husband. And so I have my own Indian sensibilities of how things are supposed to be, right? But I'm also trying to spread the good news about Indian food. And so if he has issues with it, and so now I'm like adapting my recipes so that, it becomes a little more alluring to the American palate. And that's why my cookbook is called An American Kitchen with an Indian Soul. Part of it is that I grew up in the Middle East. I grew up in Dubai, and I went to an English school, which is why I have this accent. And so that meant that all my friends were British. And when they would come over for sleepovers and stuff, my mum was already adapting what she was making so that it would meet in the middle, between what they were used to and what we were used to.
Speaking of legacies, you've got 2 daughters.
Yes.
Are they enjoying cooking as well? Are they
Oh my God, they
footsteps?
love cooking.
Oh, that's great.
They love to cook. If I'm cooking, they're usually in the kitchen. It's really important to me to help them learn to cook. I want them to respect food and respect where it comes from. I can teach them about where they're from through their food. We have a role there, and you're part of that story.
Right.
And that's huge.
That is huge.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Really
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.